Hello, and welcome to the unveiling of the updated Isle of Trust. We are excited to share with you our group's hard work and collaboration over the past 6 months. Isle of Trust is an immersive game set on an island where players navigate promises and actions inspired by the prisoner's dilemma theory to shape cooperative efforts, test trust, and reap the rewards or consequences of their choices. My name is Chloe Holland, the team lead for our Winter-Spring 2023 Portland State University Capstone project. And I'm joined today by my amazing developers, here to provide a comprehensive overview of our project, highlighting our game's key features, walking you through our development process, and reflecting on our journey and hard work. Let's get into a quick demonstration of the game's core features. Here we have traveled to an island where we share a cherry orchard with our neighbors. It appears we don't really know anyone yet since they're appearing gray. Over on the left is our player's sidebar where you can see all the information about our character. We have our statistics on the top where we can see how many tons of cherries we have, how many times we've worked together with our neighbor, and how many times we've been honest with them. Down below is our turn phase box. Here is where we'll be making decisions with everyone. Below that is our history with all of our neighbors. Soon this will populate with the history of our promises and actions. Over on the right is the player selected sidebar. We can view our neighbor statistics and their history with their neighbors. I can select anyone on the map and view information about them. Let's play a few rounds to get used to the buttons. I'm going to promise to work together with Jesse, match with Nina, and work solo with Matthew. Now we're in the action phase of the game. I can view my neighbor's promise above the corresponding button. I can see that Jesse promised to work solo with me. Now the decision whether I want to be honest or lie to my neighbor. I think for this round, I'll decide to be honest with everybody. It looks like I lost 2 resources. I'm going to play a few more rounds to get to know my neighbors. It's now 1954, and if you're curious, I can open a history panel with one of my neighbors to see what you missed. It appears Jesse wasn't being very nice to me. This is where our investment system comes in. If I invest 15 tons of cherries into the library, suspicious personalities learn how to become students. I can also invest 15 tons to the university, and students will become reciprocators. Oh, look, it appears some community members have already donated to the library. Let's contribute to see if we can teach Jesse how to be a student, since he's suspicious and can't really trust anybody. So we can watch, and it appears Jesse has turned into a student. Well, that's everything for our main gameplay. If you didn't catch all that, that's okay. Viktoriya will walk you through the tutorial next.
Okay, so let's look at the tutorial. The main difference between the tutorial and the main game is that the tutorial is structured around levels and specific game scenarios. We really wanted to create a pleasant, playable experience for our users that will walk them through all the buttons and all the game mechanics. So once we click here, we have our menu of 7 levels with the storyline and increasing difficulty. I'm only going to go through a couple of levels that really showcase the main features of our tutorial. So let's start with the most complex one, level 7. You can see what it looks like. And this shows us our next feature, which is the professor guy. He stays with the users throughout the whole tutorial experience. He tells a nice backstory, he offers guidance, and he shows hints as well. So when we click on the arrow, we can move through the story, which will take us to our next feature, which is the spotlight. We have this screen blackout where the user can't click on anything back here. They can't click on any of the buttons. And then we have a small section of the screen really highlighted to bring the focus of the user to what the professor is talking about. So if we move through this, we can see the professor guide disappear, and then this hint button appears up here. We can click on it, and then we can see what the goal of the level is and what the user needs to do to win the level. So let's actually play a couple rounds. So you can see all the interactions and what the end of the level looks like as well. And I've actually rigged this to end after 3 turns. So you don't watch me just click away. So let's see what happens at the end. Looks like we failed the level, and this is what the failed screen looks like. It will prompt us to replay the level and try again. So let's actually go to level 4. So you can see what winning the level looks like. Let's skip the story here. I've rigged this to be only 1 turn and automatically win. There's a 5-second delay for the user to see all the interactions here before the screen appears. And here we go. We have the congratulations, the confetti, and the prompt to take us to the next level, which brings us to the end of our tutorial demo.
Hey, I'm DJ, and I was a part of the tutorial team for this project, helping figure out the general structure of the tutorial and assisting in level creation and dialogue. So, what was the Isle of Trust? The Isle of Trust is a web-based game application that was initially worked on by the Spring and Summer 2022 PSU Capstone team and has now been our project for the past 6 months. The work completed this project was a complete overhaul of the general game mechanics and a fully fleshed out tutorial design. It's an interpretation of the prisoner's dilemma scenario, where unique personalities alongside the player interact with each other, and everyone's decisions affect the general livelihood of the island. It attempts to provoke thought and brings attention to the idea that working together for the greater good is better than to work alone. The game itself creates a sort of emulation for trusting and deceiving people. Promises are made for the sake of gathering resources, and personalities have different interactions, as well as potential for investment in public services. The Isle of Trust was created for the intent of education. Students may be learning about how the world works, scenarios where individuals may differ in ideals or thoughts. There will be times when people don't know each other, and the ability to spread positivity may be pulled thin. This game tries to portray that in an accurate scenario. Even if you're not a student, it's just a general game. Players may want goals to achieve, or some may enjoy a portrayal of a full story, and students exploring the internet even have the potential to learn about something they may not know. As a player, your actions matter, and the ability to strive and perfect the world around you can be an enjoyable experience to play through.
Hey, I'm Naton, and I'm going to be going over all the major features of our project. So, in terms of big features, a large majority of our time was spent on adding an additional phase to the game, and giving the player the ability to choose their decisions. One of the major features that was requested was for agents to be able to make promises to each other. We implemented this by adding an additional phase to the game called the promise phase, where agents can choose to declare if they're competing, cooperating, or reciprocating. The second major feature we implemented was the ability for the player to make their own choice. Originally, the player's choice was automated based off of the role that the player chose at the start of the game. We felt that there wasn't a lot of choice that way, and it didn't feel like you were actually playing a game. As you can see on the left, there are now buttons that allow you to choose if you want to compete or cooperate with your neighbors. This brings us to the tutorial, another feature that was heavily requested due to the game being very confusing without guidance. The tutorial team did a great job implementing this feature. There are currently 7 tutorial missions that guide you through the basics of the game. Other features. Due to the promise phase being implemented, new personalities were created to replace the old ones. Additionally, a history mechanic was also implemented that allowed the player to see any past interactions of any 2 agents. Another feature is the investment system. This was implemented so that players could effectively spend resources to change certain personalities so that they could work together. Spending 15 resources in the library or university would change agents of a specific personality to a more cooperative one, depending on the building being invested. We also implemented a reset button that allowed the players to restart the game while also keeping all other factors the same, such as your neighbors. There are certain positions in this game that can be effectively soft locked, so it was requested for there to be a way to restart and try again. Lastly, we should go over some of the many features that were removed from the game. As stated before, the old personalities were removed for new personalities that better fit the new version of the game. Additionally, there was an influence system that allowed agents to spend resources to pull their neighbors towards their personal personality. We removed this because there was a lot of confusion on how the system worked, and we decided that it was a bit more complex than it was necessary. And finally, we have mood, which shifted based off the outcome of the previous round. It was tied to the influence system, so it had to be removed as a result.
Hello, this is Ben, and I will be describing the software architecture. This image here shows an overview of the tools used to build Isle of Trust. Because this was a continuation of another group's project, the software architecture has mostly stayed the same. We didn't have to spend time to set up the code base, but we did need time to learn what was being used and how to use it. The front end was built using React and TypeScript to render the HTML pages. Convo was used to display much of the 2D assets that you'll see in the game, and CSS was used for styling the HTML. The back-end part of the project are all the game mechanics, which includes how the AI interacts with each other and how the state of the game changes after every turn. The essence of this project was really React and TypeScript. Not everyone was familiar with both, but we found it was easy to pick up and implement. React allows modularity, and there are many packages you can use to install to make development more efficient, which was important considering a group of this size. The picture on the left here is a snippet of the codebase. So when the user first launches the website, the index file is loaded, and this creates a virtual DOM using React, and this we'll call the main file. The main file contains the navigational bar in the footer of the web page, and this will also render a different route depending on where the user wants to go, here in the routes folder. Models folder will contain all of the AI logic. Generators include algorithms for generating different aspects of the game, like the characters and the map. Data is where the JSON files are stored, and components include all of the HTML and user interactivity that is rendered using React and TypeScript. And the CSS folder contains all of the styling files. And that is all.
My name is Adam Stagner, and I'm going to be talking about the development process and unexpected events we ran into while working on Isle of Trust. In the first half of this Capstone project, we spent a lot of time just learning the code base and the structure of the game. We took on this project from a previous Capstone group, so we need to see how they implemented the game so we could better understand how we could add our own functionalities as we worked on this project. A lot of the other time we spent just focusing on game plan, the new features with the sponsor, and also going over how we could build an interactive tutorial to help the users understand the game better. And the second part of the quarter is when we really got to work on adding these new functionalities and working on the tutorial. In the beginning, we ended up splitting up into two groups. The first one being game mechanics, which had Ben, Naton, Caleb, and Vinh, and then also the tutorial team made up of DJ, Viktoriya, and myself. This allowed us to split up the work between the two main functionalities that we were adding to the game, and it made it easier for us to communicate with each other and work on those sections of the game as well. Each week, we would do asynchronous team stand-up meetings where we would answer 3 questions. What did we do last week? What are we working on this week? And what are we blocked on? This allowed us to know what each individual was working on at the time, so we had a better understanding of the pace of how we were looking in our development cycle. We also had bi-weekly meetings with our sponsor, going over the new functionalities that we added and any improvements that they thought we could make to the game. We used Jira as our project management software, which allowed us to create stories for the new functionalities that we were adding to the game. We used a board to keep track of what part of the process we were in for those functionalities that we were assigned, in progress, code review, or completed. This was really helpful with our 2-week sprint cycle that we had, because during those 2 weeks, we would need to finish all of those functionalities on the Jira board, and it gave us a simple way to keep track of it over the 2-week span. We also used Discord as our communication tool, where we had separate threads for each team and also a general thread so we could keep track of what was going on with the project and communicate with each other if we were running into issues. We used GitHub to review code and to make changes to the code base. So when anyone finished a function for the game, it would have to be approved by a team member. So they would go over your code and test it to make sure that it was good to be added to the deployed game. Some of the unexpected events we ran into as a team were that we had to do an entire game mechanics overhaul. Originally, we thought we would be adding new functionality to the previous Capstone's code, but we ended up doing a whole new process of how users play the game, as you can see from the design photos here. It is a whole new gameplay experience for the user. Also, we ended up adding public services toward the end of the project, as the sponsor wanted to have a way for users to change other players' strategy types while playing. This added unexpected development time that we did not account for. The game mechanics team was able to add this feature successfully, even on a strict timeline. The last unexpected event was that we needed to create a duplicate set of the game mechanics for the tutorial side of the game, as the changes made in the tutorial would have an impact on how the game was played. This meant that we had to add the changes made to the game structure to both copies, adding extra pieces we had to keep track of. This added challenges as the game mechanics were continuously being updated as we were building the tutorial levels around them. Overall, we were able to adapt to these events and create a fun and interactive game for the user.
So we divided into 2 teams, game mechanics and tutorial, and each member from a team will pick tasks that were assigned to their team. The team lead, Chloe, would often review pull requests and provide good feedback. When a member gets stuck, another member would always come in to help. Everyone's contribution was essential to the final look of the game. So here are some of the features that each member was most proud of. Chloe was the QA, product and management. Naton allowed players to choose their own actions each round. Benjamin worked on the promise and action function. I worked on the history UI and the reset functionality. Caleb worked on agent coloring and allowing non-players to donate. DJ worked on the tutorial main page and the structure. Viktoriya worked on the professor mechanic and the spotlight for the tutorial. And Adam worked on the default characters for the tutorial levels.
The lessons that we learned from working on this project are how team-based software development actually works, how to work with existing code base, how important UML diagrams are for understanding a code base you didn't develop, that software development is a constantly evolving and intricate process, that having a team is extremely helpful for working on a project of this scale, and that 6 months is not a very long time to work on a project like this. As for what we do differently, we will spend more time planning integrations of features to fit into the codebase before implementing them. We would enhance the integration of the tutorial within the codebase, and we would have refactored our codebase to organize the components and instill object-oriented programming methodologies. For feedback, here are some words from our sponsor, Moshe Rachmat.
Hi all, I would like to thank in what I hope is an alphabetical order. I would like to thank Adam, Ben, Caleb, Chloe, DJ, Naton, Viktoriya and Vinh for making this wonderful game called Isle of Trust, which is all about cooperation and about people learning to trust each other and work together. Together. And until they can have enough resources to build a university, which we are almost gonna do. 1, 2, ta. Yes, and look at what's gonna happen as we are just gonna see so many greens, not so many greens. What's happening? Who are these people? Come on, we're trying to make life good for you. Oh yeah, look at that. What a game. Finally, we can work together and learn how to trust and move forward in life for ourselves and for a community. Okay, thank you very much. This is such a wonderful game. There's so much to learn, but I don't have the time to explain it all. So thank you again for the team, and and that's it. Bye bye.